Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. This is Tactical Foul. I'm right here with my friend Tigo. How you doing today, brother?
Can't complain, man. I cannot complain.
Man, Champions League football, man. We're about to get back to it. I've been missing it so much, dude. I mean, just the games, I was just getting out of work and seeing all these games and all this exciting football, especially this season that's been happening. I'm just excited to see this final because, like, let's be real, dude. I mean, as much as I love Barcelona and I wish they would have been there, like, nobody deserves it more than these two teams to be in this final. Honestly, nobody deserves it more than these two teams. I feel like these two teams have been playing some of the best football. As much as I hate Inter Milan right now because they freaking knocked us out, and the way that they did it and the way that it happened, obviously, like, it upsets me and it gets me riled up. You know, it puts my emotions all over the place. And the fact that, like, even though I hate PSG and the fact that Luis Enrique, to me, I think my favorite manager of all time is managing them, and to me, I think he's such one of the people I think I look up to as far as, like, the way he lives his life and the way he conducts himself is to me, like, obviously this is the first time I would say that I ever root for PSG. I always hated PSG. I've never thought like, oh, I'm gonna root for PSG in a final, honestly.
And that's where you find yourself, right? Is like,
yeah,
like you mentioned, like, this final is kind of the perfect final for a lot of, like, it's really hard unless your team lost to one of these guys to hate watch this team. Like, there's a lot of reasons to dislike PSG, state money, and all of those things.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about just the storylines that are coming here, young, exciting team on the come up, Kylian Mbappe leaves and they get better, and now they're in a final, and all of the storylines within PSG itself, rebranding themselves after what was the failed experiment of just throwing massive money at well-established superstars, which is what they try to do, to transitioning into this insanely
like, this is
young
the
team.
first time I've seen PSG actually have a project that they worked on from the ground up and do something, right? And built it. And
then
like,
in the
inverse, players,
when you look at Inter, it's a team that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 years ago, because the final hasn't happened yet.
2 years, was it?
2 years ago, faced heartbreak in the Champions League final against Manchester City, and since then has done methodical and tactical moves to make them get better. Like, there's a lot of things that you can say about this team or that team or anything like that, but ultimately, we're going to see, just like in the semifinal, I mentioned this the last time we did the semifinal episode, that we were going to see a duality of games of order versus chaos and control, attack versus defense. That's what we're seeing here as well. And to make it very clear, today's episode is not going to be a normal episode to what you guys are thinking. Today is going to be about you guys. I think that Inter is going to win this final, and I have a couple of reasons to believe that. And Kevin, like he mentioned, thinks that PSG are going to win this final, and he has his reasons to believing that. But ultimately, we want to know what you guys think about our points on why we think the respective team is going to win, and I want to make sure that you guys let us know all of that stuff in the comment section below, because we want to have a conversation about this. We're going to be reading every comment. We already do. And so let us know in the comments. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and the like button. We really appreciate it. But let's not waste any time. Kevin, PSG are going into this final, their first final in 5 years. The last time they were in the final was in 2020, and they suffered that devastating and kind of humiliating loss there. Inter's last time they were in the final was, like I said, 2 years ago, and they suffered their devastating, sort of humiliating loss there. When you look at this PSG compared to that PSG, what kind of growth, what kind of development do you see from them that makes you comfortable in saying, yeah, they're going to win?
I think that it's two different teams almost that we're talking about here. And I feel like that's a big difference between them and Inter, because for Inter, it's not so much too different of a team. I feel like Is it? I mean,
Yes,
looking back at
absolutely.
them,
Both
it's
strikers are
completely different.
Oh yeah, Lautaro
The
Martinez
last
wasn't a
time they played,
striker.
what? The last time they played against Man
It
City,
was Man
completely
City.
different team.
Yeah, it was Lukaku up top, and it was Onana in
Oh
goal.
yeah. I
Remember?
remember now.
Was
Yeah,
like I'm not saying that it's like I think every team goes through its and because
yeah.
it's a shorter amount of time, it's only 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
They went through their evolution, right?
Yeah,
But it's not the same team.
right.
You know,
Well, going
Martinez
back to
was there,
PSG,
but Dzeko was there.
yeah.
Brozovic
Going
was
back,
there.
going back to PSG, and we'll get into what Inter was and their evolution because I want to ask you that same question. Going back to PSG, we're looking at two different teams in my opinion, and there's some players that obviously stayed the same, but you know, it almost seemed like PSG really. I don't know if it was Luis Enrique coming in or the fact that they wanted this sort of direction with a manager that was going to come in and kind of work on this team from the ground up. But to me, this is a team that this is a real project, not just something that they're like, all right, let's put money in it and see if it works. Like this time it was like, all right, let's put money in these specific areas. Let's look at what the coach wants. Let's look at like which players are going to suit his system. Like this is a well-worked project, which nobody had ever seen from PSG before because PSG have always, went out, bought Neymar, went out, bought Mbappe, went out and got Messi, went out and got, whoever they needed to kind of make that run. And they've always tried really hard, but this is the first time where they had like a shift in mentality to where they were like, you know what, let's actually structure this side, not just by players that we think are just going to win us the whole thing. And sell jerseys. And granted, I think it was Pochettino's PSG. I don't know if it was Pochettino's. I don't think it was Pochettino's. The one where Neymar went against Bayern in that final. Like that wasn't a bad PSG side. Not to look at that PSG side and say, oh, you know, it's nothing compared to this side. It was also very well worked because you know they centralized their idea into Neymar and Mbappe, and they got far, right? They did well, but they were still relying too much. They were relying a lot on these like individual players to change the game for them. And I think that yes, also football has evolved and now it's different. Now it's not you don't see many teams now that just rely on one guy to win it all for them like it was in the past. So that is another reason why I feel like it changed, but I do feel like looking at this PSG side, it seems a lot more different, a lot more structured, and a lot and you know, Luis Enrique has them playing, I think, more than some of the best football that I think I've seen Luis Enrique coach.
Yes,
in any of his, and even in Barcelona, because in Barcelona we relied a lot on Luis Enrique or on Luis Suarez, Messi, and Neymar when he was around. So it's very different, right? We look at Luis Enrique's team as in the past, even the Spain team, and I felt like the Spain team. You may disagree with me on this, but the Spain team that he was coaching was very well organized and coached. But this team, in that it's different in the sense of like, they play a lot, and I think I disagreed with you when you talked to me about this a few months back, that they play very free-flowing football. And now I can look at it and say you were right. They do play very free-flowing football. I wanted to look at Luis Enrique because I feel like I know Luis Enrique and how he likes his team structured. And I wanted to believe that like PSG had this structure to them, but they don't. They're a very unpredictable team, but they still have some structure to them, right? But they're very free-flowing. They're very you don't know where Dembele is going to play on one side, then he's going to play on another. Desiree Doué is going to play on one side, then I don't know where he's going to be the cam, then I don't know where he's going to be on the right wing, then I don't know where he's going to be on the left wing. So it's like this team has found a fluidity that I've never seen in Luis Enrique's sides that gives them this I feel like it gives them all the pieces that they need to come in and give Inter a hard time. But so I don't want to get into like the nitty-gritty
about the last time PSG were in the final. The only player that is on the team now that is expected to start that was on the team in 2020 that is now on the team now is Marquinhos. Marquinhos played in the center mid spot. And there are 2 players that are on that final that were not on PSG that final. Benjamin Pavard, who now, as we know, plays for Inter, who might play this final. I don't think he's going to end up. But fun fact, Lucas Hernandez, who obviously is on PSG now, was on Bayern for that final, which I think is very, very interesting. And I think that you're absolutely right.
Very interesting stat. Very interesting stat.
And I think you're absolutely right. When you look at, Kimpembe is on there, but Kimpembe is not going to start because he's injured and so on and so forth. And I think
not only that, but it seems like Pacho and Marquinhos are like the players.
Yeah,
right now
and Marquinhos started in the midfield in that game. He didn't start as a center back. He was a DM. I think the point that you're making of, like, obviously this is a completely different team is shown not just in the fact that we saw what they look like in 2020 to what they look like now, but I think that to answer what you were saying about PSG, to now say about, Inter.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to get into is what do you feel about Inter in that same aspect of like how they changed since they played Man City and the team that they were then and the team that they are now.
And that's the thing that I think is beautiful is I think that this team stayed structurally the same. They played a 3-5-2 in that game.
What's crazy to me, man? And I'm sorry to interrupt you here. I've always felt like PSG or Inter Milan have always played with the same formation. Am I crazy?
Almost ever.
Always have they played the same formation. I've always
football.
Looked at it like a 3-4-3 type deal.
So they play a 3-5-2, right? Which
my bad. A 3-5-2 where they're playing like that strong middle, and then they've got those 2 strikers up top, and then their 3 defenders. I feel like they've always played that way. And yeah, maybe it is the Italian football style.
Yes, it very, very much
always
is.
Seen it.
Real quick for the viewers, if you're paying attention, if you see some lights flashing, we are going through a massive thunderstorm here. So I'm sorry. There's the thunder. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but that's besides the point. Just wanted to apologize if you see some flashing lights. It's not the sky falling. It's just raining, which I guess is the sky falling. But going on to answer the question about Inter Milan. Inter Milan have evolved. And like what I mean by that is like they're still playing their 3-5-2. They played a 3-5-2 against Manchester City. They played a 3-5-2 now. It's the same manager. It is Simone Inzaghi. It's a lot of the same players. But in key areas, they got better. And not just they got massive upgrades. Because Lisandro Martinez was on that team in 2023, I believe is when it was, 2023, when they lost that final. So was Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Di Marco, Dumfries, Acerbi, and Bastoni. And those are all the guys that are expected to start. But when you look at where they got better, when you look at where they got the upgrades, they replaced Onana with Summer. That's an upgrade. That's a huge upgrade. They replaced Dzeko and Lukaku with Thuram. That's an upgrade. That's a huge upgrade. They replaced Brozovic with Mkhitaryan. That's an upgrade. They replaced Darmian with, I'm not actually sure who's going to play on the center back on the side. It might be Bisek. It might be Pavard. It might be De Zerbi. Whatever it is. De Vries, I'm sorry. Whatever it is. I think they're better than a 35-year-old Darmian. And so when I look at this team, a team that played Man City incredibly, incredibly well. Let's not forget that in that final, Rodri scored in that final, for those of you who don't remember, in the 70th minute. You know what I mean? That Inter had this Manchester City team on the ropes. That they were there. They were shooting. They were creating chances. They were doing the things that they needed to do. And generally speaking, this is the height of Manchester City, right? This is the treble-winning team. The team that would get teams that normally keep the ball and that play well against them and have 70% possession. And they had 45% possession against that Manchester City team. And so a team that I look at in that Inter Milan team that in 2023 was so close to accomplishing, the goal, which is the Champions League, ran into, let's be honest, the magical season of Manchester City. Manchester City, it almost seemed like they were destined. And I'm not saying that it was rigged or any. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm not even going to. I hate that I even brought that up. But it seemed like it was their destiny to win that Champions League. It was the treble year. They finally got the striker. Everything finally came to work together for Manchester City. And even with that, even with all of that being said, they outshot Manchester City in that game. They possessed incredibly well against that Manchester City team. And they played a game that we know that they can play now, but better. Because I think that this team has gotten better since 2023. And I think that's why when I look at this team and I look at how long, kind of like what you were saying with PSG, about it being a project, how long this project has been going on with Simone Inzaghi being there and being the manager of Inter, it's since 2021, man. This is his 4th year of being there. So these guys know how to play with one another. They know how to create chances. And I think that, to me, like when I look at it and I go, I'm going to take just, dude, they were so close. They were so close in 2023.
What was the score in that game?
1-0. Both finals
1-0.
that they were in were 1-0. It was 1-0 for Man City, 1-0 for Bayern Munich. And so we're waiting. Kevin will be right back in a second. There he is.
I'm here.
But it was
Yeah, I'm not
1-0
sure.
for Bayern Munich. And so, like I said, when it's coming specifically about the changes since the last time they were in the final, I think you're saying it was a long time since PSG were in the final. But I think that that's going to go against them because there's only one player that remembers what it's like to lose in the Champions League final. When you look at this Inter team, 9 guys in the starting lineup know what it's like. They were there. They were at that game when they lost. And I think that matters.
Can you name those 9 players?
Yes. Acerbi, Bastoni, Barella, Dumfries, Chanaloglu, DiMarco, Martinez, and Mkhitaryan. Those are 8. And De Vrij, I'm sorry, 9. Those are the 9s.
You know, Mkhitaryan, dude. And I just, I'm going to touch into why I think PSG could, because you made some really good points about Inter. They do have a lot of experience. I look at PSG, but I want to mention Mkhitaryan before I move on. I think he's a very underrated guy.
I agree.
He was in Manchester United, and people were like, he sucks because because Manchester United. But like, look at this is about to be his 2nd UCL final.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that speaks volumes as the quality that he has. He's a very hardworking player. He's a very hardworking player.
Let's talk about Mkhitaryan because I'm going to bring him up later in a point.
Okay, good. Because I do want to.
I
just wanted to touch. Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I brought him up because I feel like I think he's an outstanding player.
You're making my point for me, which is great, and I didn't even tell you about this, which is great. We'll get there.
For me, I think you made a great point when you said about Inter. They do have a lot of experience, and I don't doubt that. My thing about Inter is like why I believe that PSG are going to actually make it a lot better than other teams against Inter is because PSG are so free flowing that Inter are going to have a hard time because Inter, they're very structured defensively, but I do feel like PSG are going to kind of confuse them and they can outpace them in a sense, right? Because like you look at, I think like a player like Acerbi is going to have a hard time with players like Dembele or Desiree Doué. Personally, right? Because like Acerbi is older.
Torres and Rafinha and Yamal.
But did he? I mean, that was more Bastoni, I feel like. I mean, and we look at that, and I mean, like that game, it's kind of hard to bring up the example of that game because it was like how many goals were scored in that whole game? How many goals did Inter concede in that whole two-legged final or two-legged semifinal? That's a lot of goals, man. That's a lot of goals to say that like they were containing us in a sense.
I never said they were containing you. I said they kept up.
They kept up with the goal scoring, and that's something that I feel like is
kept up with the pace too. Because if you look at the goals that were scored, they weren't in like you guys getting balls in behind.
They weren't, huh? It was a lot of coming in.
But
magic,
I do, boop, boop, pa, right?
For me,
goal that was amazing. That
for me, looking
Pedri
at this
cross to Rafinha, magic. Like you know what I mean? Like it took you guys breaking them down like in ways where like the only thing you can say is like Jesus Christ, like these like most players don't see that Pedri pass. Most players
To be
can't
honest,
make that Yamal goal.
Inter shouldn't have beat us because
Yeah, they should have. They were the better team.
like no. They deserve to win. They did it the way that they were supposed to. But like we were coming in being more of a favorite team than Inter.
And see, and that is one of the things that I think that a lot of people are doing now with this PSG versus Inter game. And I'm glad that you brought this up because they're looking at this Inter team talking, or this PSG team talking about like, oh my gosh, they're playing such an exciting brand of football and it's so attacking and it's so forward moving and all of these things. And I think all of that is totally, totally fine. But what is it that they struggle with? Is defense. I think that's fair to say because they're so open, like you said, and like I've mentioned before in previous podcasts, PSG can play so free-flowing, and I don't think that that's a benefit for PSG. I think that's actually a benefit for Inter because I think that, like you said, they are a structured defense, but I think that because they've played together so much, they've faced every type of offense. I think one of the things that we have to talk about is the level of competition that these guys face on a regular basis domestically. And I hate that we have to have this conversation, but it's just true. I think the Serie A is much, much better overall than Ligue 1. And I don't think that there are a lot of Ligue 1 teams that can compete with the Serie A teams. And when you take into, like, it requires a miracle for PSG to lose the league. Like when Lille won, it was like off of magic, right? And Lille were on this incredible, incredible run. But that wasn't the expectation. Like Napoli just won the Serie A, and like that's awesome for them. And it went to the last day, and Inter were in on it. But there's more competition in the Serie A, and I think that matters because Inter have faced every type of team and have been able to contain them defensively because they are an incredibly good defensive team. Teams with two strikers, got it. Teams with no strikers like PSG because they kind of just play free-flowing. They've done that. Teams that play with possession, they face that. Teams that don't like to play with possession, they face it. They faced every single type of team, and so have PSG, but they faced every single type of team that you can at a much higher level. Because like I said, it's really, really hard.
Okay, let me ask you this, though. Who do you feel like had a harder route to the final? Looking at both teams, who do you think had a harder route to the final? Honestly.
Probably Inter.
I don't think so, man. I really don't. I mean, and I'm not taking anything away from Inter. But
Bayern?
But come on. Feyenoord, Bayern, and Barcelona. But then, like, PSG had Liverpool, Aston Villa, and then they had Arsenal. I don't know, man. I mean, they faced teams.
I think Liverpool, Bayern, they cancel each other out. Arsenal, Barca, they cancel each other out. Brest, Feyenoord, they cancel each other out. They only have an extra game against Villa, and I think that
it's pretty similar paths to the
controlled
final.
Villa. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Villa made a run in that second leg towards the end, but I don't think really anybody believed that, like, Villa were, like, really going to, like, win that game. Like, they scored their 3 goals. Like, don't get it twisted. And I remember going to that game saying, like, oh, that game is over. But, like, even in that game, like, PSG had, like, 70% of the possession in that second game, and they were shooting shots, and they were just kind of having fun with Aston Villa, and Aston Villa was just playing on the counter trying to see if they could create something. And look, to their credit, they got 3 goals, and PSG, after they scored their first 2 goals, just kind of gave up the game and then had to turn it back on in the second half because Aston Villa scored the 3 goals, and they were like, oh my gosh, like, let's not choke.
One thing I do want to mention
but
is,
I do
like,
think that their paths were similar.
we talk. Yes, you're right. And I was just asking because I wanted to get your thoughts on it, to be honest. One thing I do want to mention here is I do feel that we are undermining a little bit PSG's defensive capabilities because they are a good team defensively. Mendes was he played a very good game against Liverpool, man. That he's a very good defender. And Marquinhos and Pacho, I know Marquinhos is aging. He's not like your top defenders right now, but the pairing with Pacho has worked very well. And Hakimi, the way that Hakimi is playing right now, man, I mean, there's a lot of individual players in this team, and I'm not saying that there's not an Inter, but to me, a lot of these individual players, like for me, how is Di Marco going to mark Kvaratskhelia when he couldn't mark him off?
But that's not his job.
or Desiree Dewey or Dembele. I get it, but like he's gonna have a hard time. And again, he had a really hard time with Yamal in that game.
Yeah, but Dewey's
so
not
that's
Yamal.
what I'm.
Yamal's the second best right winger in the world. Like, let's be
But
very
what
here.
about Dembele and Kvaratskhelia, dude? Dembele, I love Yamal.
No, totally.
I love Yamal. But Kvaratskhelia and Dembele, I mean, especially Dembele.
I don't think Dembele is going to be all that big of an issue. He's not a real striker, so it's not. You don't have to.
No, but he's not going to be a striker.
No, I know. But what I'm saying is
they're going to rotate within that, and then they're going to find what works, and it's going to. I think that. And
Dumfries and Bisek on the other side handled that right side very, very easily. DiMarco, who is playing, hurt, and I don't necessarily know if he should start the final.
I mean, but they handled the right side. A lot of our goals came from those crosses from that left hand side where Dumfries should have been at. Yes. A lot of our goals did come from that side.
I don't want to get into the tactics of it, but
when we look at the wing, but what I'm saying, when we look at the wings, I feel like Inter struggle with the wings, and this is a very PSG love to come in from the wings because they got really great wings.
But that works to Inter's advantage. Inter does not. PSG do not have the players that Barcelona have. Yamal is much better than any of the three forwards that PSG
I wouldn't
have.
say that, man. I love Yamal. I'm a Barcelona fan, but I don't think that
see
Yamal being better than
all of those guys.
I don't see him being better than Dembele.
He is.
Dembele
He's
to
much
me
better than Dembele.
I don't feel that way.
Absolutely. That's besides the point. He is. I think anybody who has eyes would tell you that. I think that he is better. One, I think they play different positions. So the real question is going to have to be like in that free-flowing style. But here's the thing. Barcelona attack with a structure. It's coming from the outside in with individual that's not how PSG attack. We can't compare them to Barcelona because the way that Barcelona attack and the way that PSG attack are completely different. Because as much as I like the midfielders that PSG have, they don't have Pedri.
But they got Joao Neves and Vitinha.
He's not Pedri.
Bro, but Joao Neves and Vitinha, I'm not saying that they're not Pedri, and I love Pedri.
They're not in the same tier as Pedri.
And but bro, Joao Neves and Vitinha are really good midfielders.
I'm not saying that they're bad. But they're not Pedri. Pedri is in a different level. That matters. Even if it's just Pedri, just having Pedri there changes it entirely. And again, I think we're getting too lost in the weeds of individual matchups. That's not what I wanted to do here, right? I think what you're saying is right. I think that where PSG are going to have a lot of their success is attacking, right? Totally. And I agree with that assessment. But when you talk about defense, straight up just defense, Inter has the most clean sheets in the Champions League this year. PSG are not good at finishing their chances. They have the most big chances missed in the Champions League this year. And then, keeping that going, they just, if you take, the outliers out, they just don't concede. They are, Barcelona is the best attacking team in Europe. And I don't think it's all that close. And they were able to stay goal for goal with you guys over 2 legs. Goal for goal. They scored, you scored, you scored, they scored. It went goal for goal. Y'all just traded goals until the end, right? And I think that matters. But I think that the other thing that matters, and this is, I think, the last point that I want to make, and then I want to let you close out with your last point, is the one thing that this Inter team has that I don't think this PSG team has anywhere on the pitch is players that know what it takes to win and knows what it takes to win in Europe. Because like I was talking about it before, Mkhitaryan has won a Europa League and a Conference League, right? When the Europa League with Manchester United, won the Conference League with Roma, and was at that Champions League final with Inter the last time. He has been to 4 European finals and won 2 of them. He knows what it takes to win in Europe. Keeping that going, Bastoni, Acerbi, and Barella were all on that Italy team that won the Euros in 2020. They know what it takes to win the final, a final, right? Like, what that means. They understand and know what it means to do that. And then you got to go to the crowning jewel of that Inter Milan team. Lisandro Martinez, World Cup winner, 2 Copa America wins. He knows what it takes to win a final. And I think that's where I think I leave it with Inter is, and this is why I have them overall overcoming PSG, is because this PSG is fun. This PSG is exciting and attacking, but they're also really young. Barcola, Dembele, and Kvaratskhelia, they've never won anything. Ruiz, Vitinha, and Neves have never won anything.
I don't think any of these players have really won
Mendes,
anything.
Pacho, I think Donnarumma has.
Has he?
I think he has.
What
I'll
has
look
he
it
won?
up. Like, Marquinhos won a Copa America with Brazil in 2019. So, of the players, yeah, he won the Euro. He was there on that Euro team. So, of those players, you're looking at a team in Inter that have 5 or 6 guys that are veterans, that are leaders, and not just that. At every level, attack, midfield, and defense, they know what it takes to win a final. And when you compare that to PSG, it's Marquinhos and Donnarumma. And that's it.
I think you do make a good point.
And I think experience in that situation to understand what it means, what a final means, and with these guys being here before a couple of years ago, I think this means more to the players on Inter. I think that the PSG players know the history, that PSG have never won it, that they were there 5 years ago, but they don't know that hurt. Inter does. And I think that one team is going to be hungry. I think one team is going to come in to want to win the game, and one team is going to come in and saying there's no way in hell we're going to lose this game. So we're going to do this is going to be our game. And I like banking on the team that's going to come in knowing more recently what it feels like to hurt in a loss in a Champions League final.
I think you make a good point there. I do feel that is important. But I genuinely feel like the way that this team is playing is just, to me, I don't want to say better, but I want to say more effective. In a sense of like they're going to have the ball. I feel like they're going to try to come in and not to say that Inter's not going to come in and try to do the same thing that they did with us to try to score goals, because they know how to do it. I mean, they scored 14. If we scored 13, they scored 14. So it's a tough one. It's a toss-up. I do feel I am going to go for PSG. I do feel like PSG, to me, look better. Like they look like they're able to find solutions, and that they look like they're very dangerous. To me, the more dangerous team is PSG. And we could say that about them because they attack very well. They know how to score goals. They know what to do. But I do agree that Inter have a lot of effectiveness to their game, and they have a lot of good players that can come in and make big differences. And we saw that against us. So I have no deniability that Inter coming in gonna want to put up a fight. They're gonna be very physical. What PSG, I think how this game's going to have to go, I think PSG are going to have to be able to contain the physicality that Inter has, and they're going to have to keep up with those mind games, because Inter do like to play those mind games where they get really in your face, they get really physical. They're going to be talking. They're going to be like, it's going to be a ref, very ref influenced, where like it happened with us. So I do feel like PSG are going to have to overcome that and play their game if they want to win. And Inter do have the advantage of having those experienced players, but also being very physical and being like coming in your face and knowing when the right moments to score are. So I think all of that is going to play very key. but I do have PSG winning this. You're muted. I can't hear you, bro.
I am muted. Sorry. I do have a quick question because I just want you to clarify something, and then I think we'll end it there. What specifically in the Champions League? What situation or game or whatever is giving you the confidence in PSG to go out there and break down a team that is so defensively stout? Because personally, when I look at this team, PSG, I look at a team that when Liverpool played defense against them and conceded possession, couldn't score. I look at a team that when they played Arsenal in that first leg, who were playing defensively, got a goal from which was luck, and that's not trying to take anything away from it. You got to put yourself to be in positions to get lucky. It comes off of his shins and goes in the goal, right? But
it was a shot. It was a shot. He was in a perfect.
It was a shot.
He was perfect. To me, if Partey would have been there, it would have been a little different. But like he was literally free.
No.
He was right there, wide open.
Totally. But
it wasn't a most conventional shot.
Yeah. No. But what I'm saying is even then, so like he was free. He missed the ball, but it went in. I'm not trying to take that goal away. But what I'm saying is that when we look at this PSG team, and when they have come against teams that are defensively minded, and when we look at this PSG team...
I mean, let's just look at the Arsenal game, to be honest.
No, but the second game, Arsenal opened up. It's the same thing that happened in the Liverpool game. In the second game, Liverpool opened up. That's why PSG... I'm talking about specifically like games where a really good team played really defensively against them. Like... That's where I start to look at it and I go.
Do you feel okay? Let me ask you this: Do you feel like Inter played like? And I'm not saying that they're not good defensively; they are. But do you feel like they're a team that sits, that just plays defensive? They're a team that's very in your face, if you ask me.
No.
I'm looking at Inter. Inter is a very team, which is it's dangerous playing against a PSG side like this because they have a lot of very good dribblers. So that's where I feel like it's different because, like, yeah, when we look at a team that sits, they have a hard time with a team that's just going to sit, concede possession. I don't feel like Inter are going to do that. They didn't do that against us.
No, I
don't feel like they're going to do that against PSG.
Possession. I hate it when people conflate those two things. Playing defensive and
what do you mean?
And conceding possession are two separate things entirely.
But do you think Inter are going to play defensive?
That's what they do. That's what they've been doing since
they didn't do that against us.
Yes, they did.
Not really, though.
Yeah,
I mean, they went up. They went up. They scored.
They didn't attack with
five.
Five.
They scored when they needed to score, and they played in our face. They dealt with our high line, but yeah. I do feel like they're it's different against PSG.
Using your game is a perfect example because you guys played with a high line and you controlled the possession for both legs of those games, if we're going to be honest, right? And that's fine, but. When we look at both of those games, and I think that there's a lot of different situations that you want to look at and that you're going to want to like, 'cause they are a defensive team. Saying that they're not a defensive team is absolutely wild. Like, I'm pretty sure you guys had 70% possession in both of those games. So, like, yes.
Yeah, but we can't also we can't say that they're
defense. But the thing that they do so incredibly well, and why I think you feel that way, is they transition. They're the best team in transition in Europe. And I'm not talking about the counterattack. I'm just talking about when they get the ball in their defensive shape, they can transition into their offensive shape incredibly quickly. And there is a specific goal. I wish I remembered who it was that scored it. I think it was one of the Dumfries goals where it is a perfect example. You guys have the ball. You lose possession of the ball. Inter gain possession of the ball. And in their transition, they get into your net, into your box, and score in 3 passes.
I think you're talking about the that one player. I don't even know his name.
I think Fratesi. It was the Dumfries goal.
It was Fratesi. No, the Dumfries goal was off a corner kick.
The first one, not the second one. No, the second one, not the first one.
I didn't know Dumfries scored 2. Oh, that's in the first leg?
I think it's in the first game.
The first leg.
That first Dumfries goal, I don't remember what it is. Whatever it was, you guys lost the ball, and in 3 passes, they were able to transition all the way up the field and get a goal. And that's a thing that I think that people are sleeping on with Inter, is they're so incredibly good in transition. And this is not me trying to sleep on the defense that PSG have. Hakimi is a top 3 right back in the world right now. Like, and I don't
But
necessarily...
so is I feel like you've been sleeping on Mendes this whole season.
I am not sleeping on Mendes. Mendes is an incredibly good left back. This is not me trying... And Pacho and Marquinhos as a pairing have been incredibly good this year too. This is not me, and Donnarumma and the show that he put against Arsenal, this is not me trying to like crap on their defense. That's not the point.
Right.
What I'm getting at is PSG, when they face the team that have faced them defensively, and there are three clear examples of that in this Champions League. Atletico Madrid in November, Liverpool in the round of 16, and Arsenal in the semifinal. The first Liverpool game and the first Arsenal game. All 3 of those games, they struggled to get anything going. And even though the stats are going to show a lot of possession and a lot of shots, they didn't convert any of those shots. The Liverpool game, they lost. And Liverpool won on a lucky Harvey Elliott shot. But like, that game should have probably ended 0-0. The Atletico Madrid game, they had possession for, I believe, like 70% of the game. And even with all of that, they weren't able to close out the game. Atletico Madrid win 2-1. And so I think that, to me, is where I go when I say this team has a hard time breaking down a team that feels okay not having the ball. That I'm not saying that they're just going to sit in a low block and they're not going to try to score. That's not Inter's game. But Inter are one of the best defensive teams in Europe. That's hands down. They scored
it's
one.
Fair to say. I'm not.
One goal.
It's a fair assessment, but I
just want to know, and then we'll end it. Where is it that you're getting this confidence that PSG can break down a defensive team? Because I haven't seen it.
For me, I think PSG, when they have the ball, they get really good at finding that free man, like just like they did in that Arsenal game. And I feel like if they can they can find that space against Inter because they play with a back 3, that I feel like they're going to have a lot of shots. Not going to say that they're going to be scoring, but I feel like they will if they can find that free man in those spaces, Dembele, and if Dembele does well and they can score a goal and then open up Inter Milan, that's where I see PSG playing their best game.
Interesting. See, I just don't think they're going to be able to open up a back 5.
Well, I mean, we're just gonna have to see. Right? I do feel like PSG will open up Inter if they can, especially if they do something they did similar against Arsenal, where they're gonna come in hot in the first few minutes and try to find those like just constant shots and hopefully score one in. If they not, I don't want to say get lucky, but if they get lucky,
I'd rather be lucky than skilled any day of the week.
You know what I mean? If they get lucky enough to in the first few games, I know that in the first few minutes they're gonna come in, they're gonna try to shoot a lot, and I feel like PSG or Inter Milan are gonna try to have to open up, and if they can't do that, then they're going to have a hard time with Inter Milan because Inter Milan are the type of team that in the dying minutes of the game or in the second half, they're going to give you a really, really hard time because that's when they're going to wire it up. So like, I think that if PSG can have a great first half and they can get lucky enough to score their chances, they have a really good chance of winning this final.
Guys, let us know what you think in the comment section below. PSG versus Inter Milan is going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal game. And let's all hope that we get another Barcelona versus Inter type of affair because we are being set up for a phenomenal, phenomenal final. 2 redemption stories, 2 teams back in the Champions League. 1 team looking for their first European trophy, 1 team looking to come back to European domination after so long. Let us know who you think is going to win in the comment section below and tell Kevin why he's wrong and why Inter are going to win. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button while you're down there. And hey, the like button is there too, and if you like what we're doing, stick around. Guys, the summer transfer window is going to get started, and we are going to be doing so much content about the summer transfer window, covering all of the games at the Club World Cup and everything that you guys want to see. All of the links are in the comment section and in the description down below. My name is Tigo. That is my good friend Kevin. And get Out of here. Go enjoy the final.